All right, and welcome back to another session of Pellet Tech 101. I'm your host, Taylor, and today I want to talk a little bit about pellets. I have a little bag of hardwood pellets here. I have a little bag of softwood pellets. So basically just want to go through an overview of wood pellet fuel, how that differs a little bit from traditional stick wood, as I'm looking at pellet fuel for my stove, my fireplace, or as I'm looking at it for my grill. That kind of thing. So just a general overview, general information here regarding pellets. Any specific questions, concerns, anything that you might have, leave a comment in the video here. We're always happy to help. I guess first off, as I'm looking at grilling or barbecuing in different barbecue pellets that are out there, you will always find barbecue pellets to be hardwood. Always important to be cooking with hardwood pellets. So there's a number of different ones out there. Most barbecue pellets will be a base of like an oak, white oak or red oak, and then of a specific type of wood. Apple, cherry, hickory, mesquite, apple. There's a lot of different blends of cooking pellets that are out there for barbecue grills, but you will always find barbecue grills to be using hardwood pellets, and for good reason. And a lot of it is because of the flavor of that wood. Generally speaking, I wouldn't want to cook with a pine pellet. I'm generally going to have less than desirable results with the taste of the food when I'm cooking with softwood pellets. So always recommend for barbecue grills, whether or not I have a pellet grill or whether or not I have a gas or a charcoal grill and I'm just implementing pellets in like a smoke tube, always recommend hardwood when we're cooking. Now, when we get to stoves, there's a difference, and a lot of it's a personal preference, and there's differences between makes and models and how different stoves function with hardwood fuel, softwood fuel, and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of variances that are in between. So, for example, EarthSense usually carries 7 or 8 different brands of fuel. A good portion of them are softwoods, a good portion of them are hardwoods. But I still will notice a difference in my overall heat output, my ash content, overall cleanliness of the stove, and the type of clinker buildup or burn pot buildup that I'm going to find in the stove. So I always tell a person to try a few different kinds of pellets. I think that's always the best way to initial gauge your personal preference and how different pellets produce in your stove. So my personal opinion, I recommend that somebody buy a few bags of a few different kinds and do thorough testing, make thorough notes in that process. Run 2 or 3 or 4 bags of pellets through it. Make notes on how intense that heat is, how clean the glass stays, how much buildup is in the fire pot, what the ash is like. Is it fluffy? Is it dense? Is it fine? Is it coarse? Those kind of things, and kind of make those notes. Clean the stove all the way out. Move on to the next brand of pellets, and you'll find a pretty big difference in between one pellet to the next. So going about it that way can kind of help you know what works well for you. And I know that some people will like to burn certain pellets during the coldest times of the season, and I know they like to burn a not quite a hot pellet in, say, spring and fall. Maybe they have a little bit more of a savings at that time, and buy the higher end pellet during, again, the coldest times of the year. So everybody has their own personal preference when it comes to pellets. But I'm just going to explain just a little bit on how pellet stoves are different than wood stoves as I look at hardwood and softwood. As I would look at a traditional stick wood stove, I would want to burn hardwood pellets. They're denser. They're going to burn longer. They're going to produce more heat. However, when I look at these woods or this sawdust in pellet form, slightly different. Our density is essentially the same. So pellets are essentially sawdust that is extruded through a die, through extreme heat and through extreme pressure, basically forms the shape of a pellet. The natural lignin, or the resin that's in the wood, is the binder. It's what's holding the pellets together. So at least with the pellets that we carry, there's no additives, there's no fillers. It is just 100% pure natural sawdust, and the natural lignin in the wood is holding it together. I will say just a little excerpt in here, that it is important to take a look at the pellets that you are purchasing and making sure that there aren't additives or binders or fillers or anything like that that's in the fuel. Generally speaking, the fuel that you should be purchasing should have a little statement in the corner of the bag that says that it's PFI certified or PFI approved. So that's the Pellet Fuels Institute. So again, there's a lot of different manufacturers that are out there making pellets. Sometimes the lowest price isn't always the best option. So again, always tell people to look for that PFI logo on the pellet bag itself. And then from there, try a few bags of a few different kinds. And again, just kind of see what works well for you and your stove. Now getting back to the pellet fuel itself. So again, being that both a hardwood and a softwood pellet are basically extruded to that exact same pressure, the density of these two fuels is now about the same. The difference is the level of lignin that's in there. And so pines and spruces and firs and softwood type of pellets will generally have higher lignin content than say in oak or maple. And by doing so, the bond is actually stronger here. So as this pellet is falling down into a burn pot and burning, this has a tendency to stay intact longer than a hardwood pellet, oftentimes producing more heat, less ash, and a cleaner burn. One thing that I generally find with hardwood pellets is that hardwood pellets have more silica than a softwood pellet. And when this burns down, that silica ends up forming, we like to call it a clinker, but it's like a hard kind of, almost like a glass type of formation that forms in the fire pot. But heavier buildup, requiring more frequent cleaning or more frequent maintenance on that. Where I've seen other hardwood pellets that burn extremely clean. So again, there's a ton of variables here on pellets, depending on the type of wood and where that wood is sourced from and the mill that it's coming from, and again, just based on my particular make and model of a stove. But generally speaking, we find that about 80 or 90% of our customers burn softwood pellets. Bang for the buck, I am getting more heat out of this. My BTU per pound is more out of a softwood pellet than it is out of a hardwood pellet. In addition to that, most softwood pellets are able to be dried down to a lower moisture content. So that directly allows me to get a higher BTU rating out of it. And the pellets are burning a little bit more complete inside of that fire pot. So I generally end up with a little bit more of a finer, fluffier ash versus a coarse type of an ash. And because they don't have as much silica as what most hardwoods do, I don't have as much buildup or as much attendance that I have to do inside of the fire pot or the burn pot of the stove. So, and again, you will notice variations. I mean, this is a pine spruce pellet right here, and then for an example, like one of our highest end softwood pellets is a Douglas fir. Douglas fir is known for having very high lignin content. That raw material is dried out to a very, very low moisture content and just produces very, very clean, very, very hot heat. Now myself, when I used to have a few different stoves, a lot of times what I would do is I buy kind of what I call like a bargain pellet, like a good hardwood bargain pellet, and I would buy that and use that in spring and fall months. Where the stove is kicking on at night, shutting off during the day. We're not really dealing with too cold of temperatures, and then I'd buy a little bit higher range of a pellet for the rest of the season. Something that I knew was just going to give off great heat output, where I didn't have to tend the fire pot constantly, and just provided me the type of warmth without constantly doing a lot of maintenance and cleaning within the stove. So. I guess that's just the basic overview and difference between hardwood and softwood pellets. Again, barbecue grills, always like to go with hardwood. As we look at pellet stoves, always recommend a person to try a few different bags of a few different kinds, make some good notes, and see what works best for you. But oftentimes that we find it's the exact opposite of stickwood. That I'm finding my pines, my spruce, my firs are burning hotter, cleaner, and in the end, I'm actually saving a little bit more money, especially if I'm running my stove on a thermostat, by using a higher quality pellet than by a lower quality pellet. So other than that, again, always make sure that your pellet fuel has the PFI logo on the bag. Lets you know that it was tested by the Pellet Fuels Institute. And again, try a few bags. See what works well for you. There is no right, there is no wrong. So It's all about personal preference and what works well for you. So thanks again for joining us for the video. Any questions, comments, concerns, anything along that nature, pellets that you're questioning or you want us to look at, just leave a comment below the video here. Always happy to help. Make sure that you're taken care of. So thanks again for joining us for another session of Pellet Tech 101, and we'll see you soon.